we're very honored to have Swamiji here with us on this day. I think it is Nirguna's great fortune that Swamiji planned it to be here this Sunday. And when such programs happen, I always pray that we are also as lucky in all that which we do, that in a natural way, simple way, people come together, because there's birth, there's life, and then a lot of in between, and ultimately is death. There's a lot of conversation in our modern society today about the fear of death and not knowing what is death. And I think workshops are held on death. Nirguna was ready almost 2-3 years ago, because every time I left she said, "This is it, you're not going to see me again." Somebody had told her that she was not going to live past her 90th birthday, but she lived to 91 and a half. She and Christopher went traveling in India in 1979 because they were part of this school of practical philosophy looking for a guru, and then they ended up in Ganeshpuri. And when they ended up in Ganeshpuri, they found out that the guru was in New York. So they came back, met Baba Muktananda here in South Fallsburg, and as Swamiji said, for all those who know her from the early 80s, she was a very active and integral part of the Manhattan Ashram. We have Veda here, and I think he was also an integral part then, Swamiji visiting, then staying at the Manhattan Ashram. And her one seva that she probably did from the beginning till the end of her life was washing. First it was Swami clothes, ironing, and I would say she was the best ironing person I found. Never was a crease in the wrong place. There are many stories of Nirguna, I'm sure, in many different angles, in many different ways that you can look at her. She was a product of World War II, and so there was a lot of emotions she carried from that time. But there was also a lot of joy, a lot of laughter, a lot of fun. We met her, I think, in 1988 in Livingston. Girija brought her. She would visit us every Wednesday, spend the day with us. She had an old beat-up Volkswagen Polo or Beetle, I forget now. A nice blue color car. You could always tell when Nirguna was pulling in. And then we moved to Pine Bush in May 1991, and she also moved into Pine Bush in July 1991. I would have been 29, she would have been 59, and then she lived from that time, 1991, till she passed now. I think it takes a lot of courage, as Swamiji said, to be committed, to persevere, to stay with it. And from the time she came in July 1991, she stayed on. And she was stubborn in her own way. And all of those things. And I think she enjoyed a lot. She was picky in who she liked, and she was clear in who she didn't like, and she just avoided those people. She would smile, and sometimes when I'd say, "Oh yes, so and so," and I knew she didn't really care for that person, she'd just quietly slip away. Sometimes she'd tell me afterwards, "You be careful." So we had a good, loving, friendly, kind relationship. And I think, as Swamiji said, her seva will bear fruit for her, and she will travel ahead in her journey, in her life. She was a seeker, and she was clear that not even a penny of karma was to be left. So whenever there was any money deal, if she owed a penny, she would return the penny, because she would say, I don't want to come back to return this penny. So I would laugh. I would say, Nirguna, there's so much more than just the penny. So she would laugh. And of course, for those of you who talk to her at an intellectual level, she had her intellectual thoughts and conversations, and a very deep, mature person, yet sometimes very silly also. And I think that's life. And I think when I think of her, she really, in the years that we lived together, appreciated all the various facets of life. And so much that sometimes when you think, and you think to yourself, when I think to myself, I ask myself, can I be that free as she was in her mind, in her thought process? So the only thing I can say is that when we die, may so many people come to remember us, to honor us, and just simply revel in that relationship. And I think each human relationship is unique, is different, and how and what we make of the relationship is up to each one of us. I'm sure the last few years, due to her physical conditioning, was difficult for Divyani, Niteshwari, Mary Sue, Shelley, those who took care of her, and yet she tried in her own way to be helpful. And I remember one day, a year or two ago, she was having a conversation with Divyani about why am I so not so friendly. And I thought how amazing that she has dementia by then, and yet she knows that there has to be goodness, there has to be that friendliness in you, yet it was difficult. So today now I think there will be the immersion of the ashes. She passed on the 31st of May, and she didn't want her body to be touched for 3 days. So for almost 5 days the body lay in the funeral home, and it was a very simple cremation, a very simple, she I think only spent less than $3,000. For those of you who think you have to spend so many thousands of dollars for your death, people plan for 25 years, but Nirguna, what at least what I saw, was in a cardboard box. I wondered if there was a body in that box, because the box looked so small, but Divyani said, no, these people are trustworthy, and because we asked them, can we see the body? He said, it's been 5 days, so I would not advise you. And he actually said, anybody who wants to know about life and death should come see me. I've been in this business for 42 years. He's here in Walden. It's a 6th generation of the family. You have to be funeral director. Huh?
The 1800s.
Since the 1800s. You have to be funeral director, especially New York has its own laws, to do this whole service of cremation. You have a 2 years diploma course or a 4-year degree course of anatomy. Little did we know all this, because when Divyani took me there, I said to her, can I ask you some questions? Because in India it's very simple. Somebody dies, the family and friends come, and if it's during the sunrise hours, cremation is done, and within the next 3-4 days the ashes are immersed, and so that soul, that individual, can move on in their journey of life. So that's what we will do today also, immerse her ashes, as she had done for her sister here. And then I think Divyani laid out a table with all of her favorite things she wore, things she ate, and some things. And I think the best joke today is that you're going to get a shot of blended salad. For those of you who knew Nirguna, for 30 plus years, her, I think lunch, breakfast and lunch was blended salad. And so if you ever feel constipated, have blended salad and all channels will become clear. So we thank Swamiji for being here today and all of you who have come from different places to be here this morning. To honor and celebrate the 40 plus years of Nirguna with the association, with Baba Muktananda, with Shanti Mandir, and anybody who wrote of, I have memories. Many of the memories many people have is from the airport, driving back, and other also. And so I'm sure that everybody all around the world, because she traveled with us also to Australia and other places, will remember her on this day. So today the ceremony will be here. Tomorrow it's in Magod. On Tuesday it's in Kankal on the banks of Ganges. Wednesday it will be at Ganeshpuri, and then a final puja at Bhagwan Samadhi. In the Indian tradition, as Swamiji said, the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13 days, there are ceremonies that are done. And on the 14th day, or the 13th day, depending on where, when you come, everybody gathers. And it is a release of that individual to go forward. Everybody gathers and the puja is done, and then there is lunch that is done. So we thank Devyani for all of the organization that she has done over these last years. And I told Devyani that now the other 4 seniors that we have, she should start preparing their paperwork as well. So Jayashree's already done hers, and there's 3 more, because sometimes we get scared. I'm going to die. Our scriptures say, Anyanni bhutani gachanti yama mandiram sheshaha stiramichanti kim ascharya me mataha. Every day, it is for sure somebody is going. But yet, there are some of us who think, I will never go. And that is the most amazing fact, that you think that you will not go. But every one of us will go. So now, Devyani, Sadhguru Nath Maharaj.
So what we'll be doing now, for those of you who have just joined us, we'll be moving ourselves to the outdoors. And at this time, Prabal and Govind will go down to the stream. Everyone else is requested, if possible, to wait up on the veranda up here. They'll do the ceremony there, which won't be too long, probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the most. Everybody can watch from up here, only because of the rain. It's a little slippery down there, so just to make sure that everybody remains safe. And then after that, we'll be putting her ashes into the river. Some of the ashes we have kept, and this upcoming week we'll be planting 2 apple trees up in her house with part of her remains there as well. So that'll take place later in the week. And so when we're done by the stream, then we'll all gather out in front here. All of the chairs will be put out there for everybody to sit, and then we're going to have our 2 cordless microphones, and we're all going to have fun and joyous celebration of her. And it's whatever you wish to share. The idea is that everybody will just keep it short and sweet, sweet, savory, whatever, but everybody can say what they wish, but we'll just keep it moving, so we won't get into any real long speeches out there. And then also, actually I'll make the rest of those announcements when we go there. So thank you all again for your presence. I know that she probably connected to almost everybody in this audience here over the many, many years. And it's wonderful to celebrate it as a community and as a Sangha. And for those of you who don't know, she's the first one here at Shanti Mandir Walden. We are wishing her farewell and her bon voyage, and so it's a little hard. We did do everything to honor each and every wish that she had. So hopefully, Nirguna, you know that we went to the lengths, the depths, the widths to honor every single wish that you had. And more when we go outside. Sadhguru Maharaj Ki Jai. Sadhguru Maharaj Ki Jai. So once again, thank you all for your presence here. All the way from the School of Practical Philosophy, we have Donald Wiegman. As Gurudev said, that is where Nirguna's spiritual journey began. Donald, can you just wave your hand? Yeah, so they are our neighbors on the other side here. And that's where Nirguna first was going. And then from there to the Manhattan Ashram, then to South Fallsburg, then to Livingston, then to Pine Bush, and then here at Shanti Mandir Walden. And when I think about that next year we're going to be celebrating 25 years of being here, it really gives us a sense of the legacy of Baba's tradition, of Baba's path, and how we've all been so touched by his grace. And then now with Gurudev still here with all of us. So what I want to start with is Nirguna touched us all in so many different ways, and there's so many different aspects to her life. And from the boys' choir in Manhattan, at the church at Christmas time, to all of her tea parties up at our house, to the youth retreats with the watermelon and the ice cream, to all of her driving stories, to all of her sense of humor that she had. Her humor was unbelievable. And then to all of her trips to India, the Himalaya Yatras, the Kumbh Mela in Allahabad. What a kick. I mean, there's so much to say, where to begin, where to end. There's not enough time to be able to share all of that. But the one thing that I did want to start with is over the years, and especially in the last 3, I started to save some of her voicemails to me when she would leave me messages, because she would call me almost quite a bit when she lived up at the house. And she would say, I'm on my way down. And so I knew she was en route with her boots on, and she was making the journey down from the cottage to here. Or when she was over at Yaneshwari healing with her wound on her leg, and she would call me every morning and let me know what time she was going to try to make it over to the house. So this one, and I've got like a whole bunch of them, but this one is one of my favorites, and you'll see why. It's very short, but just to give you a sense of her, and then I'll tell you something about that in a minute.
Good morning, Devyani. This is Nirguna. I am ready for the action. How warm is it out there? Oh, how cold. Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.
So this one word, action. She was always ready for action. There was never enough action. If you can imagine, here at the ashram, there was never enough action for her. So she would go to New York City every Wednesday. She would drive her car down. She would time it so that she did the Guru Gita sitting in her car once she got down there, because she was waiting for her parking, her cheap parking. I mean, the stories go on. And when Gurudev was talking about the cardboard box, believe it or not, she tried to talk me into only digging a hole in the back field and burying her there. And I said, Nirguna, I said, I need to get some legal advice on this, which I did. And I was immediately shut down and said, you cannot do that. If you do that, New York State, this, and this will happen. So I was like, we're not going to be able to do that. We definitely have to do our pre-plan. So not to say, I mean, there's so many things. But anyway, what I want everyone to have an opportunity to do is share your story. So for anybody who wants to do that, now is the time. Keep it brief. Please don't turn it into a speech, because following all of this, we'll have lunch. And all of her favorite things that are up here. She's got her boots, which I wanted to keep there, so that everybody would remember her strength. She was a very strong woman, full of inner strength, and also her physical strength was unbelievable. Hard to beat, hard to match. And she would walk up every single day with her boots, make that trek. Sometimes she would have her backpack on. She would load her backpack with apples and her cheeses and her waters, one jug at a time. When she said she didn't want to drive the car, she wanted to make the journey. So there were so many qualities that she exemplified to all of us, and just to keep going, to endure, to persevere, and not to just become lazy in anything. Even when it was time for doing the trees, or even if David was here pruning trees, she would say, no, I can go out there and I can do this, and she would take her shears and she would be out there doing that. So as I stand here and I see each one of you, I remember so many things that she shared about her time with everybody, or she would come down and she would say, oh, this is what happened today, or that's what happened tomorrow, this is what we're doing now. So whoever wants to start, I do want to make sure that we hear from David Avila, who's our gardener, and she's the one who brought him here. So I want to make sure we hear from him. I also want to make sure we hear from Donald from the School of Practical Philosophy, Michael and Gloria, Vasuda and Tony, anybody else, Vaden, Mukti, Ingrid, Kristen, Rick, everybody who spent time with her, and then we'll continue from there. So David, you want to start? We'll have David Avila start. He's our local in Walden.
I'm not too good with it.
That's okay. Just go ahead.
Okay, my name is David. For those who doesn't know me, okay, okay, I'm just going back like 2010, 2011. This is the way how I got here. Okay, I was working in a farm, in a tree farm, where I've been working there for so many years. I was working out there when I saw a lady walking into the place, looking for a tree in a shrub, you know. She asked me. I went to see if she needs some kind of help. Then she said, I just want to buy a tree. Well, I say, you're asking the wrong person. Who I have to talk to? Then I give her my boss' cell phone number. Then I don't know. Okay, she spoke to him. She bought a shrub and a tree from him. A week after, she asked for somebody to come over and put it in the ground for her. My boss asked me, and he say, do you want to do this, go over and plant these 2 trees for this lady, or should I ask somebody else? I say, well, I have nothing else to do, and I'll be more than happy to go over and do it. Okay, at the end of the day, when the day when I came to do the job for her, when I did finish, she asked me, she say, they are looking for a person to do some kind of work around this place, and it looked like you're the person they need here. Personally, I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's too much for me to handle. It's too much, I don't know if I'm able to do it. And that's how I got here. And quite frankly, I'm really happy to be here, to be a part of it. And I feel like this is my second home. After, I feel like this is my second home, my second place to live. And I really gonna miss her because I used to see her all the time, and really I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Okay, next. Donald?
So, when I came to the philosophy school, School of Practical Philosophy, I think Inga had already continued her journey at that point. So when we made the connection a number of years ago through Devyani, I said to some of the old timers at the philosophy school that we had made this connection. And Nirguna we knew as Inga. And you couldn't mention Inga to anyone without getting, what a character. I felt so graced to briefly come into her sphere, and I'm always thrilled to be here. And watching the ceremony, I couldn't help but think that there's this stream did you put some of her in the stream? That's going to go into the river, which is going to go into a bigger river, and ultimately will go into the ocean. And if anyone deserves to have that journey, I think it would be her. So I'm very, very humbled to be here. You're welcome.
Thank you. Next. We got 2 microphones, so you can bring them anywhere. Veda.
Namaste. I was talking to Larry and Dana just a while ago, talking about Nirguna, and what I said was, I remember her first, I think around 1981 in the Manhattan ashram. I don't remember her before that. But she lived in Manhattan, and she came over every day, and she was our housekeeper. And I would say to her, you're such a great housekeeper, why don't you move in? No way. She would just commute every day. And the other thing I know about Nirguna at that time was she's a great housekeeper, great Sevite, but she had an independent streak. And she did things her way. And I had to learn to just leave her alone and let her do the Seva the way she wanted to do it. So, as you all probably know, she kept that independent streak throughout her whole life. And I remember 2 or 3 years ago, Mukti and I were here for one of the celebrations, and for no reason at all, she was sitting back there at a table, and she just looked up at me and said, Veda, do not go to India anymore. I don't know what that was all about. And then Mukti and I came last summer. We got to sit with her up there, and we were all talking with Gurudev, and she was sitting over on the side, and I kept looking over at her, and she had a smile on her face. And when it was all over and we were leaving, she said to us, I said, it's nice seeing you again, and you enjoying the conversation. It was a nice long conversation. She said, I didn't hear a thing. I can't hear anymore. But we'll remember her very, very fondly, and we're glad we got to see her last year. So thank you very much. Sagranath Maharaj Ki Jai.
So I'll say my first memory with Nirguna is the Manhattan ashram, Christmas Eve, and my brothers and I walk into a full packed room where the library, where they hosted the Christmas celebration for the children. And she invited us into a packed room saying, come on in, there's plenty of room. And you walked in and there wasn't, but I still to this day remember that warmth of there's always enough room. So that was probably my first And also how beautifully she was dressed. It felt like a storybook from Christmas Eve. There's a Christmas Eve story going on. She's inviting the kids to come. Santa's gonna come soon. But she was dressed in this beautiful, and she always was. She wore these long skirts with pretty blouses, hair well nice, and that was something that has always stayed with me. In Livingston, as Gurudev mentioned, doing the laundry seva, you don't realize until you realize that there's an art to everything. And I would say, I had arrived, she wasn't there yet. Devyani said, oh, maybe you want to fold some laundry downstairs as seva. And I picked the wrong basket. And she came in and said, what are you doing? And I was still a teenager and I was like, seva, you know. And then later in the day, she called me back down. And then she showed me how each t-shirt, each thing was just folded to perfection. And I think that was another lesson of hers that stayed with me. There's an art to doing everything. And if you do it with that precise care, how beautiful it looks. And then a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, when she was not so well, or 2 years ago, on a random Saturday, my husband and I came. He was hanging out and I said, Devyani, any seva? Oh yeah, Puna, why don't you go down and do laundry? And I was like, no. Like this is not, you know. And sure enough, Nirguna came maybe a half hour later. And she came and she said, oh, I told Devyani I would do it. But then she looked and she said, thank you. And I was like, oh, you know, I still had that from learning. And it felt like an acceptance that it was good enough this time. So that, and I'll quickly also, 2 more things I'd love to share is one about the exchange of karma. And this I'll say on behalf of my dad. In the summer months, we brought her mangoes that she loved. And she would say, I can't take them. And she would quickly run and have her money ready and say, how much? And we'd say, no, it's fine. And she's like, I can't take them. So there was this exchange, and then they found a good way. My dad and her, in the fall, she would bring apples. She would bring fresh apples and keep 2 bags for my dad. And in the summer, we bought mango. In the fall and winter, we bought nuts. And she ate, we all know, a very healthy raw food diet. So it was a perfect exchange of actually love. That expression of keeping it going. And finally, I just want to share about immense gratitude and the love that we felt at the youth retreats. That became a field trip for the children to walk up and have an afternoon with watermelon, ice cream, and cookies. And she was all day just kind of like, okay, wanting it to be perfect for the children, where most of the kids just needed an outing from the ashram schedule. But for her, that warmth, again, of inviting everybody. And later when we would meet her, she was like, was it good? Did the kids have a good time? Was it everything? And it was like, it was just perfect. It was perfect. And the last youth retreat that we had here pre-COVID was a special one with her. I don't know how it got added onto the schedule, but the youth had an afternoon with her here in Namaste, where it was a Q&A with Nirguna. And it was beautiful because it was learning about her, living through the war, her relationship with her sister, her relationship about being fearless, about being determined, about being acceptance. And the children asked so many wonderful questions, and I sat there and I thought, why haven't we done this before? But today I'm thankful that we did it, and so many of those youth are here today that can tell you whatever their takeaway, if they choose to, whatever their takeaway was. But a wonderful, wonderful being. So glad our paths not only crossed, but they joined for about 40 years. Our family, all of us, love her, continue to love her, and I continue to love the blessings that I received from her.
Thank you, Punam. Anybody else?
Our story starts from Manhattan Ashram. We used to go and chant, and Poonam's brother used to play sometimes drums, and she enjoyed all our chanting, and she was a very good hall monitor. for the evening program, Aarti and so on. And regarding the housekeeping, the clothes, I just wanted to tell you about this, about our story in Pine Bush. We were with her when she was folding some clothes, and I always wondered how the fitted bed sheet has to be folded, and she showed us how to do that. Then there is another story of a funeral. There was a funeral of Arvind Gosai in Albany, and she brought people from Pine Bush, but she didn't come. She said, I don't attend funerals. Maybe she's not attending this one also. Then another story of Gurudev's love for everyone she shared with us was that when her sister went back to Germany, he arranged for Wilfred and the friends to take care of her sister. That touched us very much, and she always wanted us to come for the Christmas party she held in her hut, and usually we spent it with Hattikudurs, the Christmas time. But once we were here, and she showered us so much love. She said, "You cannot go back. You have to attend my Christmas party today." So we did that, and we still remember all those days. Of course, after Chitra passed away, we didn't have much interaction because I was either in Magod or here, and not at Christmas time. Okay, so we missed the Christmas party.
Thank you, Umesh. Next, anybody on this side, front, here?
I really loved Nirguna. She was one of the most welcoming people to me, and I remember the feeling of welcome, as other people have also mentioned, that you got from her. Like, it was kind of an indescribable thing. Like, she was so big in her consciousness, in her mind, that you felt that from her. She was a rare person to me in that way, and I know with others as well. And I thank Nirguna as being, I think of her as a foremother, not a forefather, but a foremother of our ashram. And I know that we kind of stand on the shoulders of giants, and I think of her that way. We're standing on her shoulders along with many others that have given and given and given of themselves. And to think of her life, all of the seva, all of the devotion of the years and the years, it's inspiring to me, her life. What she accomplished and what she was, it inspires me. Showing what is possible for a person. And on the human level, of course, she was so funny, so we all enjoyed her humor. I loved her humor. I loved to talk with her. And she would always make me laugh, and I just enjoyed the interaction, the communication, the sharing, her outfits, as people have said, and the hiking I remember from her house and well up into her 80s. The amazement of the discipline, as Guruji always reminds us, to create that in ourselves, and that discipline. She's going to walk these miles at her age. And I say, Nirguna, Fair Milangay, till we meet again, just go on with all this love, and I know that you feel it with you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid.
One thing I want to say, she really was a dangerous woman. When I come here, I have a round trip, you know. So she said she's going into New York and she would drive me. Well, I mean, it was quite an experience because it's like she just took over the road. I do mean this. It really was reckless. just the way she would go. She would go around cars and she would just push her way through. So we made it was a record time to get back into New York. I had never gotten back into New York so quickly in my life. She was absolutely wonderful. And on that particular day, we stopped and she had to fill the gasoline. And so no one came out from the gas station, and she just did the whole thing herself. And I said, "You're a tough old lady." You said, "You really take care of yourself." She said, "Yes, I do. I really am a tough old lady." I think one of the things that we liked about being together was she liked the memories of New York, because she'd lived in New York and I'd lived in New York. And so she loved to talk about the Amato Opera Theater. She remembered that the Amato Opera Theater, she loved talking about them, and would ask me, "Are they still alive? Do they still go on?" And I said, "Yeah, you know, the Amato Opera is still there." And she also liked to talk about when she'd worked, she spent a good time of her life working as a waitress. And she really enjoyed it. I mean, she really loved it. And people must have loved her. She told me about her experiences in Paris when she worked as a waitress. And I guess because of the way she dressed, she'd go to the theater and she'd walk among the people, and they thought she was actually part of the play. They thought she was part of, part of it, you know. And she told me the names of all the people. She remembered she'd met the Aga Khan, and she'd met all these, really famous, talented, interesting people. And there was one memory which I'm trying to piece together. She was in a boat, and she was coming back and then coming through storms. She had to get through the storms. And when she finally got back, maybe she was going into Canada. I don't remember exactly where it was. And people were saying, "Oh, you'll never make it. They'd never make it. They never make it." She said, "We made it." she made it.
Thank you, David. Buddha, will you just share that one story on Lake Osiris Road with the driving when she said the punchline? I'll tell you, you'll remember to tell the story better than I will.
For those of you who go on, I think it's 208, right? On this way, there's a stop sign over there. Nirguna never stopped at stop signs. She thought it was a waste of time. She was 80-something, and the other lady in the other car also was 80-something. So the other lady was coming, and Nirguna had to stop. But Nirguna decided not to stop. And she continued, and of course they both hit each other. And Nirguna said, "Why did that lady not understand? She just said, move over a little bit." The other lady should have just moved over a little bit, and Nirguna would have passed her, and everything would have been fine. She did the same thing, I think, in Pine Bush one day. She cut through the gas station, and the police gave her the ticket. And she said, "I don't understand." She said, "There was nothing happening. I didn't want to stop at the light, so I just cut through the gas station." So I said, "But Nirguna, there are laws." So.
Anybody else?
Thank you. So I'm working on moderating my loquacity. So I loved Nirguna so much, and I'm going to miss her dearly. I have to say the primary glue of our friendship was books. I remember her of the guardian and the keeper and the lover of books, and even from the beginning. She guided me with that, and also interest in the School of Philosophy, Practical Philosophy, which I would pass on 79th Street in the city, and I got involved with anthroposophy, and of course she had a relationship with that too. So the two things I wanted to mention, other than the 10,000 others, are that she and Christopher would regularly drive up to Hillsdale, where my house is, to visit the book barn, which is the most fantastic used book, I don't know, Mecca. And which way? Up. And so they would frequently go to the Hawthorne Valley Farm Store and get soup, cookies, and they would stop by. And so we would have these wonderful connections over that. And then, of course, the book hut. So many memories of her in so many aspects of her personality, quirky, intense, which of course I have no affiliation with at all. Sorry. But she would always guide my son Luca, to the cartoons, to the god and goddess cartoons, which he still treasures to this day. And she would always give him one, and he would insist on paying for some. And then, but the other part is more personal. When I went through medical things, she shared with me some things that she had been with when she was very young. And it was just delightful to be able to have a sense of humor and dark humor and levity about it, because she was very pragmatic and she would meet my over-emotionalness. And and it was just a very comfortable thing. So I saw a lot of joy and humor in her, and it felt really like, I don't know, an older sister that I didn't have, or an aunt or a grandmother, I'm not sure. But that's all. I didn't cry.
Thank you, Kristen. Gaddafi.
I shared a workspace with Nirguna downstairs in the house, so I have a lot of things to share, but I won't go into all of those since the time is very short. Just two small things. I think many of us remember at one point she had a fall, and she had a huge black eye. She never broke a bone, by the way, no matter how many times she fell. It was extraordinary. But she had this huge black eye, and of course everyone was coming up to her and, how are you? Are you okay? And then after a few days she came out, she made this sign that she hung around her neck. And it said, I am fine. That was just so typical of her. And then even sometime after that, so this was quite recent, when she was spending a lot of time just sitting, and she was sitting out on the front porch, and it was a beautiful day, and I said, Nirguna, would you like to go for a walk? She said, And I said, no, come on, let's go for a little walk on the rail trail. It's such a beautiful day. So we went for a walk, and we're making our way. She was complaining that she wasn't able to walk as well as she used to. But then we came to a bench, and she looked at me before I had a chance to ask her. She looked at me, she said, would you like to sit down? I was supposed to be the caretaker and the companion. That was very typical of her also. Just those lovely little things.
Thanks, Gaddafi.
I'm here because Ida called me, and Ida would like to be here too for Nirguna. I would like to say Nirguna was like a mother, yes, and all teenagers love her. And whenever I say to Evan, I'm here, how is Nirguna doing? She's okay. And like Chris was mentioning, all children, all teenagers love her. I just remember the memory how she shared about her mother. So Nirguna was 5 years old, and in Germany, so in the town came gypsy people, and they, music and dance, and she just really loved them. So she decided she will go with them. And then she spent, like, maybe she said she walked with them maybe like 1 kilometer, 2. She was 5 years old or 6, and then she said, what about my mom? My mom loves me so much. So then she returned. But it just showed her spirit, so she was so free in her spirit. And then, yes, she was, and she told me other story about her childhood. When the war started, Second World War, like Gurudev says with her memory, she was a child. I don't know how it was. She was 7 or 8, like age of my parents. So, and I was in Russia. So I remember my story from that side. But I finally, I was so happy to meet Nirguna. She told me how German people live, how they went through the war, how terrible time was. And then she said, just remember, when God really wants to save you, He will save you. And then she said that it was time when they live in the apartment with no food. And then her mom, they hear the bell ring. So her mom will go open the door, and this is a food staying, and nobody there. So she, and then, going through such stories and experience, then she came here, she shared all her love, she accepted everyone, she loved everyone. And I love her. And she was, from one side, very simple, open heart, from other one is very intelligent, and she really proud of her library. And she says, oh, Devyani loves it. It will be the library for the ashram. So she gave us many lessons and many welcome. And sweet memory for her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody inside?
I wrote one or two things down because there are far too many things I want to say. I've had 2 girlfriends in my life that have been really, really close. One died about 2 years ago, and now the second one. Why they're so special? Maybe because we both came from Europe and we kind of just understood each other. So anyway, just 1 or 2 funny stories. First seva she had me to do was washing the floor in the adjoining room, to call it. So I get the mop. Oh, no, you can't use that. You have to get down on your knees. Oh, jeez. So anyway, I had, I think we never had any arguments. There was one time I laid into her, and it was at one of her parties. And Christmas, and I'd given her some of those things you put on the soles of your shoes to stop you slipping. And she said, I don't want these. You can't give me anything. I said, you have one problem. You're really good at giving, but you're dreadful at taking. And I didn't care, I just said that to her. Gurudev was standing right there. Do you remember it? Good. And then another time we went into Kingston, so she wanted to look at wigs. I took her to this place and we found the most perfect wig. She would not try it on. And then she thought she'd be really smart and she asked me to do some ironing. I think she was looking for some kind of relief. And I thought, well, I'm pretty good at ironing. And then here's all this stuff. Luckily, it wasn't Gurudev's stuff. And I ironed. I thought it was an okay job. So I said, how did I do? No, she said. I don't know why I've got this here. I can't read what I'm writing. So anyway, life goes on, and she and Devyani came to our house, and we had a nice lunch. And then Devyani gave us a little tea party up at the house here. And Tony wanted me to mention the story, and he just remembered this morning. He said, I want you to tell them this. We're having this wonderful tea party, and me and Devyani were having this serious conversation. And Nirguna couldn't hear very well. I guess she felt a bit left out, and she looked at Tony and stuck out her tongue. So he made a face back, and this went back and forth. And he said, up to this point, you knew we'd been friends, nice, but this really opened things up. So why can't I read this? Undo typing, undo. Okay. So then she got sick and moved down into the house. Well, that should have happened before, but she moved down into the house, and I'd visit her on Sundays, and we'd have nice talks, and she'd always complain, and I said, well, I have to leave now. Why are you leaving? Why are you leaving? You just got here. So this went on, and then she went into the nursing home, and Tony and I were incredibly blessed because we had the time and the desire to go and visit. I'd only cut her toenails, and I'd pick out the hairs on her chin, which she seemed to enjoy. And so we managed to get her outside to sit in the sun one day, and she was so happy. She said, I want to stay here forever. And it was the last day I went, or the fourth time we went, and I thought, this is going to be it. But I couldn't just go and say, well, I probably won't see you again, enjoy life, I know you will. So I just said, see you next week. So we went the next week, and they said, she hasn't opened her eyes in 2 days. So I said, okay. I sat down, and I sang a little Nirguna Shiva and held her hand and took a knot out of her hair and left. And that night I kept waking up, and everything was so peaceful. I could hear Om Namah Shivaya. And the next morning I got the text. And it's like I'm so happy because I know where she wants to be. But today is just a little bit too much. Thank you.
Thank you, Basudha. Anybody else? Inside. Everybody good? Insuk, please.
I figured I better share something because Jackie will be mad at me if I don't. Because she would probably tell this story better than I will. But before I tell that story, I wanted to say that I really appreciated Nirguna's love for books, love for history. And then when you went into her house, you could see all these wonderful first editions because she and Christopher collected books, but it was her love for the books, love for what was in the books that was special. Christian tradition, Buddhism, very obscure mystical studies that she was involved in. So her thinking was much deeper than she let on. And it was nice to spend time with her and have those kind of conversations occasionally. And she told me about practicing the presence, the Christian monk who just practiced the presence of Christ and had mystical experience of the presence of God. And that inspired me to read that book and to try it myself. But she was really a maniac on the road, and that was what I remembered the most. And she would pick us up when we came from the Bay Area in the late, mid-90s, all the way through the 90s, I guess, when we started coming to Pine Bush. And she'd pick us up, and she would never take us to the ashram the same way twice. Because there's so many ways to come. Nirguna, why don't you take us the same way so we can learn how to get there? No, I don't even know how I went last time. And we started to think about moving here. And Nirguna we'd come, and she was taking us home. So we went from Pine Bush, and she said, "Oh, you're thinking about living here? Well, let me take you to New Paltz." Because we'd never seen New Paltz. She said, "You're going to love this place." So she showed us all, and we had like a certain amount of time to get to the airport, right? So she's showing us the pizza places, the ice cream shop, and all that. So drive through New Paltz, and we're, whoa, this is cool. We might come back here. But it's just part of her welcome and hosting nature. So we got back on the highway to go to the airport in Newburgh. So she's driving along, she's talking, and she's driving about 80 miles an hour, and she passes the exit to get off. And now we're on the way to Woodbury. And we've got short amount of time to get there. So don't worry. She sees the, crossover with this big sign, "No U-turn." No problem. That was that. We got to the airport. Incorrigible, but full of love and welcome. Thank you, Nirguna.
So we thank everyone for joining us. Shanta? Yeah, quick. Come on.
I wasn't going to speak, but I think I had a different perspective because I knew her when I was a kid and used to come here. And the first thing I remember was my mom when we came into the hall at Pine Bush, and my mom would say, "Oh, Nirguna's here," be careful, be smart. And I just picked up on that, and so I was scared of her for a long time because she was very strict in the hall, and you didn't want to mess up. So that's how I viewed her for a long time. And then I came for one of the youth retreats, and she used to be in the basement in Pine Bush, and the boys used to be down there too. And I remember I went down, and she came in to get her lunch, and something was not where it was supposed to be. And so she was like, "Who did this?" And started getting really upset at everyone. And then she realized it was the boys, and she was like, "Oh, you boys," and she had that attitude. But she was so soft on those kids. I think she had such a soft heart for all of us. And even now when we used to come back and she recognized us, her face would light up, completely light up when she saw us. And you just knew she saw us as those kids. And every time she'd be like, "What happened to you?" She couldn't see the time pass, but she still saw that, childlike, and she just felt that connection with us. And the last story I'll tell is when I came here one time to stay for a while, and I was doing some seva, and I had an allergy attack. And she was like, "Oh, I'll take you to the store and get some medicine." And we got there in a minute. And then she, and so we had all this time left, and she was like, "Oh, what do you want to do? Do you want ice cream? Do you want chocolates? Do you want this?" And I was like, "No, I'm good. I can barely breathe. I'm fine." But she really, really wanted chocolates and ice cream and everything, I think, for herself. So we made all these trips, and she showed me around and had some ice cream and some chocolates, and it was just a really wonderful day. And she was just like that, she could connect to us in a special way with all her stories and everything. I just loved spending time with her.
So we thank everyone for joining us here this morning, especially Swamiji, who came all the way from India, and everyone else from all around. And so definitely you have to have a shot of the blended salad, which Peter is pouring and Devyani is organizing. And I think Devyani has all these things of Nirguna. For those who remember her, I don't see any skirt of Nirguna's. And there was the big, right? So have a look, and I think Devyani will be here to see, right, what is to be eaten. And where's the lunch?
Yeah, the lunch is coming.
Here? Okay.
So what we're going to be doing now is everyone can we'll come around with the tray, and then everybody has a little bit of her blended salad. So everybody will kind of just do a little toast, and everybody can enjoy the blended salad that was her absolute favorite, and she waited for summertime to have the fresh cucumbers and the hearts and the real romaine lettuce that had the green leaves. She always used the green leaves. So we have that here. There's red pepper in it, lemon juice, and olive oil, 5 ingredients. So that was her standard. So we'll do that. And then after that, everybody can come up and you can collect anything from this area once you collect your main food, which will be here, because you'll have your trays. So we're going to set up a table here. And then we'll do it both sides so that we can serve everybody, fairly quickly, so we're not going one by one. So the line can start down here, take your food, and then you can go through here, take whatever you want. She loved cherries, mangoes, hummus, almonds, her little wild rice sesame sticks, the grapes, the gingerbread cake, and chocolates, lots of chocolate, and the oatmeal crisp cookies. So everybody make sure you take a little bit of everything and then enjoy your meal. And thank you all for your presences here. It's everybody's blessings and everybody's grace that you're all here to help us move forward. So thank you all. Sadhguru Maharaj Ki Jai.